So let's get right to the bottom thing, shall we?
Yeah.
The nitty-gritty, the meaty underbelly of this whole thing. You're probably curious about how this Right Club operation works, eh? Here it is, a look behind the mask. Casey and Stephen, your cornermen, talk up this event to all their friends, of course. It should come as no surprise that they have literary-minded friends, wordsmiths and poets, and just those fuckers who sit in the corner of a bar and hold court, telling story after story till the place closes down, oral tradition as it is today. The word gets put out, writers needed, and lo, we respond. So a few days after Right Club May, I got booked officially for this month. The first email that came out told me that I was going up against my boyfriend, and that our challenge was top versus bottom. But it didn't tell us who had which topic. So I got to start pondering which topic I'd prefer. And it happens I had a story for top. It was a good story. It was a story about orgasms. In my mind's eye, I would tell this story, and y'all were going to be left shifting uncomfortably in your seats, adjusting your trousers, and then Colin was going to get up and lay some rhyming couplet shit on you, but you wouldn't even be able to process because you would be so blinded by your own boners. But then the next email came from Right Club, and as you know, I got bottom. Bottom. I was a theater major. I've seen a lot of Shakespeare, and I've done a lot of Shakespeare, and I've read a lot of Shakespeare. Hell, I've even improvised Shakespeare. So you say bottom, and I picture a guy with an ass's head. That's all I see. A guy with a donkey's head. I was married to a Scotsman for 7 years, and he always called my ass a bottom. And every time he did, boom, guy with a donkey's head. I may have even pictured him with a donkey's head. Too many productions of A Midsummer Night's Dream have actively ruined the word bottom for me. But I have to get up here right now and argue for bottom. I have to make you vote for bottom. Fuck. Intellectually, I realize that this should not be a hard sell. This is San Francisco. Bottom. Make a couple of cheap jokes about the Folsom Street Fair and call it done. But here's the thing about writer's block. It happens at weird, inconvenient times, and you start doing weird shit to find your way back from it. My first approach, I do a Google image search for bottoms. Not safe for work, and ultimately not that inspiring. I check dictionary.com to see if I really know what bottom means. I realize, yes, I do. Playlist of bottom songs, and then things start to get truly ugly because songs are emotional, and songs with bottom in them are just weighted. And suddenly I'm back in the last year of my marriage when life started to pile on the shit. When my husband was working extreme hours at his startup, coming home close to midnight and not ever really talking to me. My job was 8 hours of mental health insurance scut work, when the most fun part of my day might be talking to a bona fide crazy person on the phone and having them swear at me in some truly creative fashion, and I wasn't allowed to hang up. I was doing an improv show with a group of antisocial perfectionists, and I often felt like my only friend was my therapist. I couldn't remember the last time I'd gotten laid. I could remember the last time I felt this way. Senior year in college, I'd woken up in the middle of the night and thought I was being stabbed in the chest, only to find myself surprisingly alone. I spent the next 3 weeks in the hospital while they tried to figure out what was wrong, and one hypothesis after another was proved incorrect until finally the bacteria that had been eating my lung the entire time penetrated my lung lining, and the doctors had to go in and remove my entire upper right lobe. A month later, when I came out of the hospital, the university tried to charge me for the semester because I hadn't dropped my classes quickly enough for their liking. They backed down, but then said since I wasn't registered for classes, my medical insurance wasn't covered. So I had $100,000 in hospital bills. Oh, and I needed to pay for my dorm room. After all, I hadn't moved out before going to the emergency room. It is a cold, dark place, the bottom. It is a place of tears and hurt and defeat and crushed dreams. But it has its purpose. When you climb a mountain, you can turn around and bask in the views in all directions. You drink in the wonder around you. But when you are at an emotional low, you pivot, take in your surroundings, and at a certain point in your 360, a pivot in your mind happens as well. But that turn is a 180. your mind does a sudden what the fuck. Because while you can use great height to see a great distance, it takes an emotional valley to achieve true clarity. And on the heels of that bottomed out clarity comes resolve unlike anything that you can achieve when you're at the top. A resolve that says, I can change my situation. I can change my life. I can change the fucking world. And the brilliant thing about the bottom is that you're so fucking low, anything can start that pivot. A phone call from a friend that reminds you, there's more to life than just a loan. A sudden random crush that reminds you, a marriage isn't supposed to be just a close friendship. An email from the Write Club guys that reminds you, you can actually write. And so, I celebrate my bottom. I bless the pivot points in my life that put me in the place that I am now, in a career I never would have had if I hadn't lost my lung, that features much more human interaction than the one I was planning beforehand. I revel in the pit that ultimately landed in the phenomenal relationship where, no matter who wins this thing, we're going home and getting laid to celebrate. And I even relish the occasional writer's block that sends me down strange paths like Spotify and dictionary.com, because I do occasionally learn things there, so bottoms up, people. I have looked at the world from the bottom of a well, and this fat bottom girl has made her rockin' world turn round.